I awoke sweaty. I knew I heard my mother's voice, but I couldn't move. I couldn't move because I had stayed up late the night before and hadn't done anything the night before to make me this exhausted. I closed my eyes once more, praying that the sleep would leave me alone. I had to get out of bed for school. When I heard my mother's voice again, I opened my eyes. I noticed she had left the light on for me. I wanted to get out of bed and get ready for school, but I couldn't. Something was very wrong, and I knew it. I wanted to yell for someone to assist me in moving, but my voice didn't function either. I knew I should be terrified, but I also knew I needed to get someone to come to me. I heard someone knock on the door, and my mother let them in. I was wondering whether it was someone coming to assist me. I closed my eyes once more. When I opened them again, I realized I needed to act quickly since I kept falling back asleep. I needed to grab my mother's attention. I could hear her conversing with a neighbor and realized she couldn't assist me from there. I moved my arms with all the strength and concentration I could muster. They landed on my chest, and I felt my eyes close once more. I tried to fight it, but I couldn't, so my eyelids closed once more. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I just had a few minutes to obtain some assistance. I could hear my mother calling to me once more. I tried to respond, but my sister in the other room down the hall drowned out my feeble attempt. I could feel myself internally combusting. I needed assistance. I tried to lift my arms again, but this time I used all of my might and threw them away from me. I rolled out of bed in a short distance. I closed my eyes again, then opened them again, and this time I had enough strength to crawl back a foot, dragging the rest of my body behind me. I was completely exhausted and saw only blackness. I was starting to feel scared, but I knew that if I let terror take over, I would die right there on the floor of my bedroom. I fought some more in the darkness, pulling myself a few more steps before needing to rest. My neck was on fire and my arms were turning like jelly. I knew I didn't have much more strength left in me. I had a feeling I was going to die. I let the panic wash over me and then dragged myself out of the corridor. I tried to summon assistance, but I didn't have any more strength. I was thinking what I was going to do when, with one last burst of force from nowhere, I slammed against the wall and cried, "Mom!" I could hear people running around the house and someone, all of whom sounded alike now, asking me what was happening. I shut my eyes. I was in an ambulance when I regained consciousness. I recalled the loud alarm and the folks that were in the room with me. That put a smile on my face. After all, I didn't die. When I opened my eyes, I noticed someone holding on to me with a sad expression on their face. I was aware that I wasn't performing well. I could feel my arms and legs now and wished I couldn't. My entire body was ablaze. I could feel the heat radiating from my body, like if I were in the midst of a heat wave. The heat was leaving my body, but the pain in my arms, legs, neck, and back was severe. I wanted to inform the folks who were present that I was in excruciating pain, but wonderful sleep flowed over me. Although I couldn't open my eyes, I was awake once more. The pain returned, but I realized I wasn't in the ambulance anymore. I wanted the agony to go away. A light was shone into my eye by a hand. I could feel the pain entering my brain through my eye, but I couldn't do anything about it. I dozed off again until I felt numerous hands on me. I was being transferred from a gurney to a bed. When I was able to open my eyes, I noticed that there were a lot of people around me. They all appeared to be quite focused. I closed my eyes again as a needle was inserted into my spine, wondering what was going on with me and why I was being placed in a coital position. When I awoke, I was being loaded back into an ambulance. I could see my father's expression. He was present. I felt terrible for him. He appeared to be suffering. Someone told my father to follow the ambulance. I was hoping he was okay. I also questioned why I was being brought somewhere else, so I closed my eyes again. When I awoke, I was being prodded and shoved. I was in yet another hospital, this time in a bed. When I opened my eyes, my head was tipped on its side, as if sleeping. I noticed my mother staring at me. I was able to speak in hushed tones and asked her, "Am I going to die, Mommy?" She glanced at me and assured me that everything would be fine. I recall being placed in that coital position again and feeling the needle go into my spine. There was no discomfort this time. I noticed the doctor staring at the tube of fluid he had extracted from me. It was brownish in color with small flecks that turned out to be blood. I passed out again when he spoke something hurriedly. I was still asleep when I was led to a room with a large bathtub and placed in it. The ice was thrown about me. When the ice came into contact with me, it instantly melted into warm water. I had a 104-degree fever. I'm not sure how long I was in there. The next thing I remember is the doctor telling my parents that I needed to be quarantined. I couldn't move, and my eyes wouldn't open again. Everything around me was audible, but it was as if I were listening to a radio show. Then came that ever-peaceful sleep. The next thing I knew, I was in a coma. I could hear people conversing, but couldn't understand much of what they were saying. It sounded like they were speaking in a different language to me. That struck me as strange. I could hear my mother discussing baseball with me. She was comparing what was occurring to me to a baseball game. I was one of the players, and I needed to hit a home run to win the game. I tried to hear what she was saying, but I couldn't do it for long. Later, I could still hear my parents conversing with the doctor. I had a blood clot the size of a baseball growing behind my heart, which needed to be drained or I would die. He informed my parents that there was a minimal possibility I would or could survive the surgery, but it was the only option available. They planned to pass a catheter through my leg and find a way to get to the clot behind my heart. I didn't hear the remainder of what he was supposed to do. I passed out once more. I could hear what was going on around me, even though I was still in a coma. I just couldn't move or speak. I knew when the operation was taking place, because I began to wake up when the tube was still in my body and they were in the middle of it. They couldn't give me anesthetic because I was already comatose. I went into the darkness after hearing someone cry, "He's flatlined." I wasn't in the dark for very long. I could feel myself moving, but I knew it was no longer on the table. Thousands of colors were in front of me. I appeared to be observing the aurora borealis. Then, as if one of the rainbows of colors had seen me, it charged at me and lifted me. I felt myself traveling along the rainbow as if it were solid, as on an escalator, only I was sitting down. I was riding down the rainbow, watching the colors when one of them hit me like a wave. I was immediately overcome with emotion. The emotion was the only emotion I could feel, but it was swiftly replaced by another as I continued getting hit by pure emotion hues. I felt fury, perfect love, jealousy, terror, happiness, and other emotions that I can't describe. I was completely engrossed in that emotion until another ran into me and threw me. I was blending in with the rainbow. I knew I was dead, but I had no idea what to do. I saw more rainbows as I looked beyond the one I was on. I wondered whether anyone else was on the other ones. I could tell that the colors were fading, as were the emotions they were hurling at me. Finally, I came to a halt, as if at a pier. I stood up and exited the rainbow. I was in what appeared to be a misty, gray place. It almost appeared to be a cave. I began to feel better as I noticed a stranger approaching me. My late uncle was represented by the figurine. I stepped in front of him, and he informed me that I was not in the right place. When I looked around, I noticed a brilliant light in the distance and to my right. "Yes, that's bliss," he responded with a nod. I returned his gaze, and he extended his big hand to me. I could see things in my thoughts as I took it. My mind was filling up with knowledge. I knew everything there was to know, or would be known, in that split second when he touched my hand, except one thing. He glanced at me and said, "You have a choice. I could enter the light and go to heaven. He assured me that he would lead me there, or that I could return because it wasn't my time. I was yanking the covers off my head in an instant. I was back at the hospital, surrounded by the other dead individuals waiting to be taken to the morgue. When I opened my eyes, I felt fine. I heard a piercing scream and watched a nurse flee the room. A group of people returned to the room a few minutes later. I later discovered that I'd been proclaimed dead and had been in that state for 32 minutes. I also discovered that 14 of my classmates had contracted spinal meningitis. I was the only one who lived through the sickness. I was 14th on the list. The ailment was tested for in my body, but it was not found. I was asked to stay in the hospital for another 2 weeks so that tests could be performed to determine what happened and why I was still alive. They collected blood and x-rays, assessed my range of motion, and asked me a lot of questions during the testing. Nobody ever asked me about the time I was dead. I didn't inform anyone because they didn't appear to care about anything other than why I was still alive. On the day I was leaving, the doctor informed me that I would be immortalized in the annals of medicine. I felt all right when I left. When I returned, I could feel all of the information my uncle had given me slowly fade away. I knew it was only a matter of time before all of the fresh information vanished. I began to notice strange things happening shortly after I was released from the hospital. When I came close to a TV or radio, the station would change. It would burn out if I got too close to a light. Not only do house lights exist, but so do street lights. When I got close to other electrical gadgets, they would freak out. Then it vanished as well. The encounter provided me with a gift. After completing another IQ test, I discovered that I had gained a few points. My IQ was determined to be 175 points. But it wasn't that I had learned the information. Rather, for lack of a better term, I had been programmed with it. There was no experience connected with having it your entire life. So I didn't, and to some extent, still don't know how to use it to its best capacity. I have the impression that a critical component is missing. I've been told over and over that I'm a miracle with a purpose, or something I'm going to do, because I never made the decision that my uncle gave me. I have no doubt that a miracle occurred, but I'm still waiting for the purpose.